Well, I'm pretty sure all of you still have the horrifying images in your head that happened recently in Collins, Virginia Tech. And some of you might still actually remember what happened in 1999 at Collins High School. Many of us value our Bill of Rights very dearly, some rights more than others, but the right that is in question right now is our Second Amendment right to bear arms. In the history of firearms, there has never been one case, and I'll stress this, I can't stress this enough, one single case of a gun going off and killing somebody. You don't see a gun walk around with little legs shooting people. It just doesn't happen. Ever since muskets were used, cannonballs, there was always someone lighting the trigger, something happening. There's always someone responsible, not the gun. Gun control was set forth during the Kennedy presidency to prevent crime, reduce violence. You know, it was originally intended to do good on society, but it had the opposite effect, by all means, on society. And that's what I'm going to speak to you about today. I'm going to speak to you about the negative effects it has on society and on crime, and how a firearm can be an effective defensive tool at home. The best evidence I could find of firearms, gun control going bad in the U.S. is in Washington, D.C. I don't know if many of you are aware of this, but there's a current ban in Washington, D.C. where any kind of firearm is prohibited to be on the area of Washington, D.C. Mainly this was put into effect because of the high murder rate that was going on in the area. So many politicians got together and said, you know what, we're going to ban guns, and they banned them. All right. But what ended up happening was murder rates went up. Don't know why. It went up. And this rate kept on going up for several years while the rest of the countries went down. After this incident, many people started suing the District of Columbia, which is the Washington, D.C. area, for the right to bear arms. And the Supreme Court started reviewing this and said, maybe we're violating some Second Amendment rights here. But the mayor of the District of Columbia came up and said, you know what? More violence, more guns leads to more crime, and that's what he stated, and and he stuck to his guns, and that's what he said. But there's another great example of why he's incorrect, and it's in Kennesaw, Georgia. In this little town, ordinance was passed that actually required every home to own a firearm. I don't know if I'll be lobbying for something that extreme, but they did it, and it serves as a great example to my point I'm trying to make. When everybody was required to have a firearm, for some reason, crime actually went down, especially home invasion robberies and violent crimes. And I started thinking, wait, what did the mayor say that guns cause crime? What's going on here then? An interview was done by John Stalin in a 2020 interview of violent criminals at a prison. When asked, what do you think about armed citizens? They say, you know what? They're worse than the police. I'm not going to mess with them. And they acknowledge, just the fact of knowing that somebody might be armed was more than enough to prevent them from even getting close to them. Gun laws don't really affect criminals, how they think about it. Most of the guns they have, they're either illegally bought or stolen. It's that simple. So any little gun law won't affect them whatsoever. It would just affect the responsible citizens who are trying to protect their homes, property, and family. I don't know if many of you seen the news lately. You see police raid criminals at so-and-so's house, and they show what they found. What they find? Drugs and a bench full of guns. And you see those guns and damn, where do they get those? It's exactly that. Citizens are not capable of defending themselves against those high, how would I put it? Dangerous, lethal weapons. And that's why just putting forward those laws and legislations pretty much leaves citizens unarmed. Not necessarily unarmed, but less vulnerable. I'm pretty sure none of you guys want to be vulnerable in a case like that. That's why a firearm is a very convenient way of protecting yourself and family. Besides the obvious, you can defend yourself. A firearm has a very great psychological aspect to it. I don't know why. If you just hear a shotgun being racked, a gun, the sight of a gun going back, you'll stop whatever you're doing. It's just not the sight of it, it's the sound that it produces. And I don't mean the shooting sound, it's just that, for some reason it just sends chills down people's spines. And that's why it's a very effective weapon, because most criminals are pretty paranoid. And, whatever they're doing, all of a sudden they hear that little noise, they'll stop, the hairs in the back of the neck, their hairs in the back of the neck stand up, and they'll run. It's not worth it. In contrast to like a melee weapon, like let's say, many people say, I need a gun, I got a bat. I got a crowbar. You have that thing, you swing, you miss, there's a very good chance you're dead. On contrast to a firearm, you have anywhere between 4 and 17 tries to hit them. And if you don't do it in that way, you shouldn't have a gun. It's also relatively very cheap if you think about it. It could run you about $300 plus ammo. I mean, if you compare it to a home security system, they have what, $1,000? It's ridiculous. Why do you want that? I have to admit that on the plus side, it does notify the authorities, which is a good thing. But average police response time is anywhere between 30 to 60 seconds. Where seconds are valuable, I do not think the police are going to, it's going to matter. So you can die in a matter of seconds. It's not going to matter whether they get there in 30 to 60 seconds. It's just not going to matter. Also, when it comes to being victimized by any, rape, aggravated assault, home robbery, there's a 70% chance that a weapon will be used against you. It's just a known fact. And going back to the little bat example, you have a much greater chance of scaring them away or just defending yourself with a firearm rather than with a baseball bat. Because, criminals like to have the upper hand in every single case. And if they don't have that upper hand, and they see, oh God, this guy's armed, it's just not worth it. The odds of being fatally wounded, it's just not worth it for them, and they'll run. It's just that simple. They do not see it's worth it. But still, people consider guns as a malicious item for some reason. Well, it's kind of obvious. Another good example is that many people fear firearms because it's like, oh yeah, it's going to be used against me. I'm going to accidentally shoot myself or something. But the truth is that according to actualfacts.com, only 1.5% of accidental fatalities caused by guns. You have a much higher risk of dying in a car crash, drowning, choking, or even slipping on a banana peel and bumping your head and dying. The only reason you don't hear about this actually happens because the media is like, oh yeah, gun was used to kill this guy. Oh my God, but then someone slips and falls. You don't hear about that. So the media plays a very important role to making firearms seem as a very malicious item, even though when it comes down to it, it's not. Many people do approve of firearm control, and to a certain point, I do too. I don't agree that anybody should just be able to walk up to the counter and oh yeah, I want that one, just like if it was a piece of candy. I do not agree with that. It's obvious you need to throw a background check and make sure that guy's not mentally unstable. When owning a firearm, like I said, it is a very potential deadly item. But then again, what is it? Baseball bat, paperweight, power drill, you name it, you can kill someone with it. It just depends how you use it. And when purchasing a firearm, you have to practice very precise safety. That means, make sure, and most of it's actually common sense. Don't leave it outside in front of the kid, lock it, don't play around with it when you're drunk. It's just obvious. Well, today I have explained to you why gun control is not a good idea on society and how it could actually encourage and eliminate crime. I have also told you of an alternate way of defending yourself instead of one of those fancy home security systems. What I'm not trying to do here is actually tell every single one of you, hey, right now, go buy a gun. I'm not trying to do that whatsoever. I'm just trying to convince you guys to please don't pass any ordinances or vote for any laws that would violate anybody's Second Amendment right. It's just not right. If there's anything I want you guys to remember during this speech is that gun control ain't crime control. Thank you.